The job of a director is to discover in the actor something more than he knew he had.
Don't give them any guidance. Don't tell them how you want the scene. Don't tell them what you're looking for.
When they are cast, you give them the little candle that's that person's soul, and you say, now it's yours. I don't know more than you.
In your lifetime, you probably will have one good idea if you're a really good artist. And if you're genius, two good ideas. And that's it. But be careful with them.
The director, you have to open yourself up rather than sort of bring your stencil.
Don't do anything that somebody else, that you know deep in your heart somebody else can do better.
You'd have to, make up a lot of shit for some acting. You just make stuff up to make them feel comfortable or like they're really thinking. The whole thing is they gotta be castrated.
The problem one always has with actors is coping with where they are.
What the fuck do you want me to do with all of this? Be aware of every detail and make intentional decisions. No, follow intuition and leave it to the unconscious. Watch every film ever made. No, do anything other than watch films. Fight for every idea and don't let anyone shake you. No, let your team guide you and get feedback on everything.
I'm getting mixed signals here.
If you're a creative, your feed is probably full of prominent artists sharing their opinions. You're constantly being bombarded with ideas and advice, often in the form of strong opposing opinions, so filled with conviction and often with enough logic to at least be considered. If you let this noise in, it will have an effect. Scrolling through feeds, falling into rabbit holes, clicking through content, your brain is passively absorbing everything, the good, the bad, and the utterly useless.
What kind of garbage is that? Oops, my anarchy symbol.
We all know absorbing the noise is damaging. We're too deep in the era of information overload not to. But if you're like me, you might think that when you're listening to renowned artists, this doesn't fall under the category of noise. In fact, this is exactly when you should be listening, right? This is applicable.
But listen up now. This is serious.
In the words of Terence McKenna, you don't want to become so open-minded that the wind can whistle between your ears. When you listen to some great artist and let that affect your mentality or approach, you're submitting to perceived authority. This extends to any authority figure you let influence you, by the way.
Initially, when I was trying to make films, and you always felt like you got nervous that somebody else was right who was talking to you, who maybe was in a position of power, like that their opinion somehow was right or better than yours, and somehow you could never stop to think no, it's just different. You just think differently than I do, and that's okay, but I'm not wrong.
The danger is that your submission is based on your idea of how fantastic this artist or figure is, and not on any experience you've had when creating art. And the reason these artists have such strong convictions about how art should be made and interpreted is because they derive these convictions from experiences in making art. And they should talk about that. That's what makes them who they are as artists. But as I've said before, that you shouldn't surrender the value of art to institutions and organizations, you also shouldn't surrender the value or process of making art to figures. And don't worry, I see the hypocrisy in this. Not that I could be considered a figure, but I recognize that I'm contributing to exactly what I'm complaining about.
Come on, Russell. You're part of the problem.
But that's why I would also add that you should only listen to the parts of what I say that you agree with. I'm not an authority, and you should only value what I say insofar as it aligns with your own views and experiences in making art. Of course, it's good to come into contact with new ideas gained from the experience of others, and it's especially important to have your ideas challenged in discussions, but your primary stance on creating and experiencing art should come from exactly that, creating and experiencing art. As an artist, no authority figure can tell you how to make art, what's right or wrong, and what it should mean. You can only learn by doing. With the exception of the technical aspects of your craft, the soft skills of art, the difficult to pinpoint, profound insight that makes something really connect with you, that cannot be taught. While we're on the topic of perceived authority, I'd like to mention it in terms of art critique as well.
Critique is so limiting and emotionally draining.
You'll notice that some critics focus on technical shortcomings instead of this profound insight I previously mentioned. I think sometimes this is a tool critics use to produce the illusion of understanding and analysis and to justify that they have authority to speak on the matter.
The fuck you talking about? You know what you're talking about.
I used to pay far too much attention to technical aspects as well, but assessing assessing art on the basis of technical proficiency is an assessment of a completely different skill set, almost like a non-creative skill set. It's a preoccupation with accessible and correctable details, not core ideas, creativity, or artistic quality. It's like tweaking a campfire to achieve the optimal stack, airflow, and other conditions with no regard as to whether the wood is even burning.
Bobby, you're missing the point.
Because the technical skills are not the art. They are the tools by which to express the art. This is why you've likely seen the work of incredibly technically proficient artists that don't make you feel anything, because the essence is missing. Great artists use technical skills to complement this essence. The reason I think few people talk about this is because it's very hard to put into words. You might even think I'm being vague or unnecessarily obscuring information right now, but I think it's just very hard to express because it's not as easy to label as the technical qualities of a piece.
His art sucks.
I think David Lynch is trying to express it when he talks about ideas, but even then it's very difficult to interpret what he's saying.
So you get an idea and it is like a seed, and in your mind the idea is seen and felt, and it explodes like it's got electricity and light connected to it, and it has all the images and the feeling, and it's like in an instant you know the idea, in an instant. Then the thing is translating that to some medium.
Let me try to give an easy example. It could be letting an emotional state guide you through painting. Let's say it's the experience of grief. It might vary somewhat from day to day, but for the most part, it's persistent. The feeling's not going to escape you. So you can create a scene on the canvas that captures this feeling, and your choices can be guided by that feeling. The subject, the colors, the composition can all be guided by your intuitive impulses based off of these persistent feelings. People can feel that. This synergetic, intentional, source-based approach to creating work produces a cohesive piece that has a core based in a fundamental human experience.
Shit is real.
Now this is a nice clear example where we know what the essence is and we can't escape it, but sometimes you'll create because this is what you want to create right now and you don't know exactly where it's coming from. That makes it harder to find the source of that essence, and it makes it harder to make choices that complement that essence. I think that being able to tap into that source to make creative decisions, that's the priority.
And you always need to go back and stay true to that idea. Keep checking that idea. And what you realize is the idea is more than you realize. And if you're true to it, when the work is finished and some years go by, you can even get more out of it if you've been true to the idea in the first place.
No one can show you how to get there. You have to find the way yourself. And that's purely based on what matters to you, what hurts you, what excites you, what questions occupy your mind. Like I've said before, the inevitable thing that you will always come back to on your creative journey is you, your experience and your convictions, the source of why you feel this need to create. As long as you're able to tap into that, everything else is irrelevant. What artists say, what critics say, what anyone says.
I'm not interested in that.
Don't let anyone tell you how you should best express that. They will pull you apart from every direction.
The only advice you ever hear is something you already know, and it just gets confirmed. If you think of all the advice that you've heard, 50 million pieces of advice people, and there may be 3 or 4 pieces of advice you can think of having taken. So it's not that there isn't things to say to artists, but unless they're the specific things they're going to hear, it's not worth their while listening or worth your while telling them. So I think it has to do with the specific interaction of the person giving the advice and the person receiving it rather than broad nostrils.
If something you hear really strikes a chord in you, let it motivate your approach, but remember that the only person that can authentically express what's inside of you is you.